Everyone's dome's bigger than mine.
Got a big old dome.
I know.
Who was it you were just interviewing?
Johnny.
No, before that, and you were talking. You opened up the episode.
That's how we opened up Johnny's, because
was it?
Johnny couldn't figure out his headphones, and then when
Got
we
it.
put him on, he literally was like, "Do I just have like a little head?" I was like, "Oh no, man! With me not having hair, and I have like a super little head. I mean, I could go all the way down. It's a little tight on me, but like, yeah." And
I'm
then
like a 7.5 head.
yeah, I told him that. I said, "Well, every time we do two Mats, one market, you know, I'll do a podcast after, and I'll put on Kemps's headphones, and I'm like swimming in them."
All right. Well, let's just get started off that note.
Yeah.
I'm Matthew Kemps. I'm the founder of Lone Wolf Realty Group at Spyglass Realty, and this is
Matt Kirschling with Gold Star Mortgage.
two Mats, one market.
So what are we kicking it off with? I know we always pre-talk about topics. I've got one, but what were you mentioning first?
Let's just go with rates. That's the big topic right now,
Yeah.
and how they've been. We got reduced. They've dropped. They've gone up. They've kind of done a bunch of things. Give us kind of where everything's at. Where do you expect people? How is everyone going to react to it? Kind of give us some details.
Yeah, so I think I actually said this morning, because I'm even seeing now real estate agents posting things about interest rates. And if you, I won't name any names, but I saw someone specifically post something on Friday that said interest rates are, 1% lower than they were in basically in the last year.
Keeping current matters.
And yeah, and that was true on Friday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And since Friday, we've just seen interest rates trend upward. And what I think is important in terms of rates right now is terminology, right? Rates are definitely trending down. But when we say that, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And it's definitely not a light switch. And so, yes, rates are trending down, but nothing that is like, oh my gosh, they just turned the faucet on, like, now's the time to do things. And I'm the guy that, benefits the most from that. So if that was the case, I would definitely be telling you. And the reason that I'm trying to keep things cool is because, yeah, I'm getting phone calls from people that I talked to like maybe 3 months ago when rates were at like 7, and they're calling me and like, I hear rates are down. I'm like, yeah, we're maybe 6.5. And they're like, oh, that's it? I'm like, yeah, that's it. It's down, but not.
You gotta when we so Matt and I sometimes will work out together, and then we went on this like walk around the neighborhood, kind of where the office is at. And he gave me a good analogy. We were talking about like, oh yeah, when you're in Vegas, you're like, oh, I won $3,000 the first night.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, how the second night go? Lost 1,500. Kind of same feel.
It is.
Yeah.
So, in your gambling analogy, yeah, sure, you walked out of the casino with an extra $500 you didn't have before, which is great. But you usually don't tell that part. You just talk about how you were up like $2,000, and you don't talk about how you lost 1,500 of it.
That's the true degen.
They're out there. But I think that, for real estate agents, because we keep it real estate centric and client centric. For the real estate agents, I am not Nostradamus, but I've been fairly accurate with some of my predictions. I don't really think we're going to see things that are going to be exciting for our industry until spring of 2025. And the reason I say that is because even after rate cuts and everything along those lines, clients always want to see if things are going to get lower. So they sit on the fence, and then you're going to run into the holidays and the election, and then, oh, it's the beginning of the year. We're getting everything together. I mean, we all know the excuses that the average client kind of gives us. And so I find that people tend to be more reactive than proactive. But I am excited for 25. I think that, it's going to be a really steady year. I think it's going to be what I would consider to be more a normal year.
Okay.
Which, that's great. Like, I like normal. It's not slow.
I had a conversation with an expired listing yesterday. We were kind of going back and forth talking. He basically kind of gave me, he goes, what do you expect in the market? Like, again, I keep saying this, but I don't have a crystal ball. But I think kind of exactly what you just said. September, we're going to see a little bit of reduction, but nothing crazy until spring. He goes, well, I just need to get through November, and then we can have a better understanding of what's going on. So what I'm getting is a lot of consumer base is focused on election. There's uncertainty. They don't know what's going to happen. Kamala running, announcing a new VP scenario, and now does Kamala have a chance? She's not coming out and talking about everything, not to get political here. But there's just a bunch of uncertainty of what's actually going on. So I think once we get past the uncertainty portion, I think you're going to have a lot more consumers react. I think we actually have a crazy holiday season.
I hope you're right. I just find that most people at the end of the year tend to utilize that as an additional excuse, and then they're like, "Call me after the first of the year," and then you reach out to them, and then it turns into, "Hey, let me get my bearings. It's the first of the year,"
Yep.
so that's why my prediction is spring. Um, but what I will say, here's a prediction, and I love recording this stuff sometimes. Um, they've already kind of announced that there's basically a 100% chance the Fed's cutting on September 18th, which is the next time that they meet. So a cut is almost inevitable, but I'm leaning in towards, I think they're going to cut 50 basis points. I really do. And I'm usually like, I tend to be a little more hawkish in regards to like, kind of keeping the screws to things economically, and maybe, for lack of a better term, letting it crack, let it break a little bit. I'm not the one that's like, no, we're good. We can see it. We're in the right direction. I think we're going to do 50 basis points in September, and that's going to be exciting for two reasons. One, obviously, rates are going to come down slightly, which is awesome. But from a consumer standpoint, I think that, with all due respect to the consumer, I don't think this is something they keep their pulse on, and I think that hearing a 50 basis point rate cut is going to be like exciting, and it's going to create a buzz.
So to a first-time home buyer who doesn't understand the difference between basis points and percents and everything else, give us a scenario on, like, let's say a $450,000 home on a 10% down scenario. What kind of rate does that get them? How does it affect them? What's that look like?
Well, so there's no like direct formula in regards to what the Fed funds cut is going to do to interest rates, but if we receive a 50% is what it is, like 0.5% rate cut, 50 basis points is what we call it. You can kind of assume that we will see a reduction in actual mortgage interest rates by about, a quarter of a percent. So, on like a $500,000 loan amount, for example, that's going to save you about $80 to $100 a month. I mean, it's nothing,
Nothing to throw a party over, but
nothing to throw a party over, but definitely putting things in the right direction. It's a feel good, and at the end of the day, whether people are talking about real estate negatively or positively, I think it's always exciting, because the more people are talking about things in this business, the more we can have good conversations and, point people in the right direction. It generates business.
when do you think we hit the fives?
Ooh. So, I mean, we have our cut September 18th, and I think there's another one right after the election. It's like the 20 something, like right before Thanksgiving. And just kind of based on what I'm seeing in the economy and based on what I'm seeing in the past, the way that, there's been a lot of talk of soft landing, right? Which is ideal situation, right? It's like landing a plane, like you don't want it to crash.
Yep.
You want this soft landing. And we've only been able to really accomplish one soft landing in economic history in like the last 100 years, and that was in like the early 90s. And some would argue it was because of like the dot-com type of stuff. So again, being the hawkish individual that I typically tend to be economically, I don't think that we will have a soft landing. I don't think it's going to be a crash or anything along those lines. But I think that, we're going to do this 50 basis point rate cut. I think the election's going to hit, and I think it's going to create some instability in the market. I think that's when things are really going to show. I wouldn't be surprised if we got another, in fact, I can almost guarantee we'll get another rate cut in November. Whether it's 25 basis points or 50 would be, but I wouldn't be surprised to see another 50. So if we get 100 basis points by the end of the year, now you're seeing interest rates that are going to be approaching in the fives by 2025, springtime. I mean, it all kind of goes along with my prediction. And so I think we'll level off in that mid 5% range for your well-to-do buyer who's, purchasing a home, putting more than 20% down, 700 credit scores. And then one of those caveats I always have to say, I'm dealing with this right now with a client who's having a really tough time digesting this. Your loan amount, as far as what you borrow, affects your interest rate. And it's the more money you borrow, the lower your rate's going to be, because we are making more money off of the interest. So, when I say like that guy who is 700 credit scores, 20% plus down, and is borrowing, over $500,000, I think the new sexy rate's going to be like 5.75, and it's going to stay there.
Kind of cool thing of 5.75 is you could sell a 2.75 rate.
on a temporary buy down.
Yeah.
But that's if the concessions are there.
Are they still going to be there?
I don't know. I mean, if rates go to the
Should
fives, are
the-
they still going to be there?
Seller concessions aren't going to exist. We're not okay. So this is going to turn our conversation.
Nice little segue.
Yeah. Okay, so we're recording this on
Was it August?
August 8th.
Yep.
5 days from now. Sorry, I can't do math.
1 week from now. 8
Yeah.
days from now.
8 days from now. No, August 13th.
Oh, I thought it was the 16th. All right.
No, 13th. August 13th, on the Austin Board of Realtors MLS, there will no longer be buyer agent compensation / commission listed on the MLS.
Bum, bum, bum.
Exactly. We will have seller concessions from what we know. What that means is, say, for example, let's say I'm helping Matt sell his house, and Matt can't list a buyer agent buyer agent commission, whether it's 2%, 2.5%, 3%, whatever it is, negotiable. Can't list that anymore. But we can do is list a dollar figure of the amount of seller concessions that he can provide, stating that the agent can use that as leverage in their offer of what their buyer agent compensation would be. But the word compensation commission cannot be stated inside the MLS for anyone to view.
I thought about this last night, and I
Okay.
haven't thought it completely through yet. So I want to get your opinion. I was thinking about cars.
Yeah.
Right? And how, like, I bought a car off of my buddy, like, maybe 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to my bank where I did my banking and got a loan on it. And it was an absolute fucking nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me realize that, like, no one really, like, sells their car anymore to, like, you know, when I was a kid, we had the, like, Auto Trader. You'd go to the grocery store, you'd get the free Auto Trader, you'd go through, you'd, like, call people and, like, go to their house and look at their car and everything. Like, no one does that anymore.
I attempted. I totally failed.
Well, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, I
Right?
totally failed.
And I'm wondering if, like, that's going to be one of the things that the consumer is going to run into when buying a house. So hear me out.
Okay.
When you go to buy a car now, you're typically going and you are purchasing a car from a dealership.
Who's the listing agent?
Well,
The dealership is the seller. The sales agent is going to be the listing agent.
correct.
Yeah.
So my point is that you think we're going to run into a world, and this world doesn't exist yet, but you think we're going to run into a world where brokerages are going to buy people's houses and then turn around and sell them.
It's called novations.
Right. I mean, I know it kind of exists, but it's
Yeah.
not the norm. So, like, when someone's selling their house now, like, they're going to go to a brokerage and say, how much would you pay me for my home? Like you would do to a dealership with your car,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then will there be discounts if you're, like, purchasing another home within that dealership? So, like, if you're shopping for a house, like, here I own a home and I identify
Dude,
that
this
I
would
want,
be really fun.
I mean, here I identify that I want to purchase 123 Main Street. And I noticed that 123 Main Street is owned and listed by Spyglass Realty.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to Spyglass and I'm like, hey, I want to purchase this property. They own it because they've already purchased it off of the current or the past owners.
The way this actually works in wholesaling right now, I use the word wholesaling. It's not like you're getting a low bad price for the house.
Mm-hmm.
They'll give you usually 90% of value.
Gotcha.
So you're losing about 10%.
It's just kind of a crazy thought because now it's like if I'm going to buy a home, I'm buying it directly from a dealership.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not buying it directly from because even if I'm like, all right, well, we're going to cut the dealership out. Man, I have tried that. That is a pain in the ass.
So let's go back to that for a second. So 10%. Let's say on average in Austin, the average commission was 5.5%. Okay, so you got 4.5 less. Now we got title policy. That's 1 to 1.5. Then we got lender.
Yep.
We're going to be a 1 to 2% scenario off from where we're at. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay. So you're willing for someone to buy your house immediately from you, take a 1 to 2% price reduction off of that for the ease, almost where it feels like a bridge loan scenario, but you're not having to pay a bridge. There you go. There it is.
Yeah.
The bridge loan's going to cost you 2.5 to 2.75%, and that's what's going to be the whole thing.
Well, and the worst part, not the worst part, but the part that we're forgetting is when I buy a car, I go to the dealership, I can look at all the cars.
Mm-hmm.
But when I buy a home, I got to drive all over town and look at these houses.
Unless you're doing virtual property tour.
Yeah, but
It's not the same.
no one's getting to buy a house on a virtual property
Shit,
tour.
they did in COVID.
Yeah, but that's still, I mean, those are outliers. And so I'm just, like I said, I haven't really thought this through, but man, I just don't see a world where real estate agents, as far as buyer's agents or listing agents, really go away, because the whole idea of people selling their houses themselves. I mean, we can't even sell our goddamn cars ourselves.
So the way the novation works now, just so viewers and you can understand the process.
Sure.
Okay, I come to you. We're through the scenario. Matt, we're selling Matt's house. This Matt. I come to you and I say, hey, I'm going to buy your property. We're not going to do any transactional funds yet, but I'm going to have power attorney on your property to be able to sign the documents to sell your property.
Okay.
So here's the contract for me, what I'm going to pay for your house. We're gonna not close on that until we close on the final one when the actual end buyer buys your property. But I get the right to have a power of attorney to sign the documents to sell your property. And I'm not going to sell your property to a portion that's below my number, because then I'm going to lose money.
Right.
So it has to go over this number. So I'm going to make a profit off this. You're going to sell a property for it, what the exact amount you're expecting. I'm basically going to flip the property with you without having to put any money into it. And I'm going to sell it that way. The only kickback I'll get from that is you will come to me, why don't you just list it for me and I get that number, and then I'll pay you commission. Then you walk it backwards and you say, here's the fees that are associated with it. On the scenario I'm providing you, there's no fees.
Well, and here's the other part, because I'm thinking about the idea of like people thinking that buyer's agents are going to get cut out. Let's go back to my car dealership analogy. Like, if I show up to a car dealership and, the car that I was considering didn't work out, we look around the lot and I find a car that I like, but it's red and I want it in blue. That sales rep gets on the phone and calls other dealerships right there.
Yep.
And then they find that car.
And then he turns into a buyer's agent.
And then he's turned into a buyer's agent, because he's not going to just say, oh, yeah, they've got the car over at this dealership across town. Just go head over there, talk to Dominic. He'll get you all squared away. Like,
so if we're going to relate this back to our industry, the agent that's working, let's call it at Chevrolet, when you came by to first look at that car, it was red, you wanted blue, or whatever you just said, or reverse.
Yeah.
He technically was working an intermediary deal in an open house.
Right. So I don't see, you're just going to have to, I don't know. Yeah.
It totally could work that way.
Right.
Because on the novation side, it's pennies after you have commissions, after you have title policy, after you have seller concessions, after you have lender fees, after you go buy your next place. That's all can be kind of wrapped into it. It just depends if we get to a market again where it's like COVID market, then it doesn't work, because then you don't get the full opportunity to sell your property over ask, and then the marketing scenario that you have a conversation with an agent to advertise it with that kind of conversation doesn't exist anymore.
I talked to some of my Ohio agents and yesterday actually, and they were talking about how it's been really busy. And I kind of always see a pattern between here and Cleveland, because it feels like, almost like opposites, right? And they're saying that they're really busy just because property values are less expensive and the interest rates aren't as big of a deal. And then I'm curious to see, like, again, once things start to take off here, not that they'll slow down, but I don't know. It's interesting. But yeah, going back to the buyer stuff. I mean, everyone's just so clever, though. Like, they're so clever.
Stop.
So, what I wanted to talk about, my topic, unless you got anything else you want to cover quickly.
No, let's move on.
So I didn't prep for this one, but I always try to think of like what's a common theme, and I am running into, that was the whole idea with the segue of being clever. I'm running into a lot of real estate agents that are contacting me that are asking a lot of questions about different types of programs and products that are available that are, from clients that are calling with just kind of these, out of the box ideas, right? So I'd like to start with the first one, which is, I actually had a client contact me, and this is exactly what she said. She said, I want to really purchase a new home, and I don't want anything that's over 5 years old. I would like to purchase where I buy the land, and I want to build a custom home, and I want to make sure that it's got, a good amount of land and I don't want to deal with any kind of HOA.
Okay.
Right? And my response was, isn't that what everybody wants? Like, given a magic wand, if I were to give you like multiple options of like, you can live here, you can live there, or you can like build this brand new custom home.
Stefan's client?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, and I said, well, that's what everybody wants. I mean, I want that. That sounds fantastic. But I don't think that people think about the potential risks that are associated with it, not only to them, but the people that they're borrowing money from. You know, I always find it really interesting where I've even run into scenarios like that where people have a reasonable amount of money, like, you know, in stocks and things like that. And I'm like, well, you have all the money to do it. Why don't you just do it if that's really what you want? And the response is always, well, like, I don't want to use my money.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think, well, if you don't feel confident in the risk that's associated with using your money, why would anybody feel confident in, you know, doing this? So going through like buying land and building a house, here's really what it boils down to. Typically, a lender wants you to already own the land, right? So that's start there. If you don't own the land, you can look into financing the land. Usually investors want 35 to 40% down in regards to financing the land. So
And when he says investors, he means
the bank.
Yeah.
The bank. The bank wants 35 to 40% down for you to buy land. Start there. If you already own the land outright, that's a good start. Then the next step is, you know, we're going to need to have a reasonable down payment that's going to be associated with the build itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need to go out and find a builder. And here's the part that most people don't think about. Not only do you need to find a custom builder, you also need to find a custom builder that has built at least 10 or more homes, right? So no, you can't GC this yourself. No, you can't build this home yourself. Here's an even crazier caveat because I've had this happen. If you're a builder yourself who's built 10 homes or more, you can't build your own home. Isn't that crazy? You have to contract that out to your competition and have them build your home for you. You could oversee it and do all the things you want, but your company cannot build your home. Isn't that interesting?
Okay, so let's on contract scenario like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just. I want to go. I'm curious on this actually.
Yep.
I'm going to use names here. Let's say Grand Endeavor Homes.
Mhm.
Okay, he owner of that company or works for that company.
Mhm.
He typically is used to building his own stuff.
Sure.
But in this scenario, he wants to buy his own land. He wants this whole thing, and then he reaches out to Paul Goodner, builds in Cimarron Hills. Okay.
Yes.
Can Grand Endeavor Homes still do all the work, but the contract go through Paul Goodner?
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, this is about financing.
Okay.
And to be completely honest,
So he can work a deal with
most of these
him.
builders have enough money to like build one of their own homes.
I get
in
that.
cash. But if he were to try to finance his particular like primary residency, and he's like, "But I'm a builder, and I've built more than 10 homes. I'm going to build my own home." It's like, not today.
Got it.
Not with financing. And then from there, before any of the financing even begins, we need to look at all of the building plans. We need to you're going to have to get out there, get with the builder, work on all the design work. There's usually money that's associated with it. And then last but not least, once it's all built, chances are if you bought the land, you built a house that like no one else has at the moment in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, because I've done these construction to permanent, not
Don't
all the
appraise.
time, but most of the time, they don't even appraise for what you paid to build it. And then that's okay because, you're counting on the appreciation and everything. But I've had situations where people, now they're paying mortgage insurance on their permanent loan. They're pissed off. They're like, I put down X amount of dollars and you're telling me it's, this house cost me $500,000 to build, but you're telling me it's only worth $450. Like, this is bullshit. Your appraiser doesn't know what he's doing. It's like, you have the nicest home in the area. Like, there's nothing here. So that
So the way
conversation has been happening quite a bit.
So the way I did was actually, without even knowing it was a smart way to do it. Okay, so what I did, builder owned the land.
Yep.
Went with the builder who owned the land to build the house. There's no finance incentives when you do that.
Right.
Go to lender I choose
Mm-hmm.
and go that way.
Well, and then that's kind of my point. Like, I've talked to people. I had a client that we just had this conversation with maybe 3 weeks ago, and she said I was negative because that was the other part I said was, have you ever built a home? And she's like, yeah, I live in a Chesmar home. And I'm like, well, you didn't build anything, right? Chesmar built the home. You picked the cabinets, the countertops, and like the bathroom fixtures. So that's another misconception when we talk about building a home and like,
God, she fucking hate you.
it's true.
I know.
I
but
mean, I didn't say it like that, but I just walked her through the fact that, like, you know, if that home, like, God forbid something were to happen and you didn't buy it, like, they had a buyer lined up right away. Like, someone was going to buy that. You know, build a Chesmar home and tell them that you want, like, you know, lime green countertops and, like, pink purple ceilings and see what they say. Like,
F off.
right. It's not going to happen. You're not building that home. They're building a new home and you're just going to buy it.
Yeah.
So that I just wanted to get out there because I've been having that conversation a lot. Public service announcement, people. We all want to just buy land, build a house to our liking, and live in the country. That's what everybody wants. It's the most expensive thing you can do.
I can tell you, I'm doing it right now.
Right. So, what else? And then what was the other thing I've been? Here's the other thing I've been running into. So I'm finding people that, and this is where I want you to kind of take it off on this one. I'm finding a lot of people that are living downtown that really enjoy that lifestyle. They like where they live. You know, they like the city, they like the views, and they don't own a home because, you know, there's really nothing downtown home-wise to buy.
That's affordable.
Right.
That's outside around the perimeter.
So I'm getting a lot of phone calls from people that are like, hey, I don't own a home, but I want to buy an investment property. You know, what's that look like? And I'm like, well, if it's an investment property, you know, here's your down payment amounts, you know, slightly higher interest rates on that. And once they get into it, they find out that the cap rate, like, doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
cap rating, cash on cash return.
Correct. So the amount of money they're making based on what they're putting down and all of the things. I would just like to get kind of your take on that when you're having conversations with individuals right now, especially in the Austin market where we've got kind of high taxes and things like that. What are you saying to those people?
It's a pivot on the conversation typically.
Okay.
Selfishly and good for them too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so flips are the best thing you can do in Austin. You and I actually talked about this last night, and I may have lost an opportunity because I wasn't comfortable with it. So let's just use that as an
the
example.
best thing right now.
Has been that way.
Okay.
Okay, best. Well, let's roll all of them. Let's start with your scenario then. Best thing right now is to find a short-term rental. Even though Airbnbs are being sold off like crazy, STR is going to provide you the highest amount. The issue with Austin is we have super high vacancy rate. So we're not having as many people use the Airbnbs, but you're still being able to charge the same rates. Rates have not dropped much in regards to short-term rentals. Long-term rentals, so we call those LTRs. Rent has been pretty constant through Austin, maybe a minor drop. Okay. But whenever we had a crazy appreciation, rents did not catch up with the crazy appreciation on the sale price side.
Gotcha.
So let's just say you had a nice house that you bought for $500,000 in 2020. You probably sold that for $850 during COVID times. It's probably worth $600 right now. Rent on that scenario probably went from $2,200 to $2,400, and now it's back to $2,350. It didn't follow the same appreciation rate. So rents didn't really catch up on the long-term rental, which is why a lot of short-term rental scenarios are suggested in Austin because we do not cash flow. It's not a good cash flowing city comparison to the appreciation rate we've had in Austin.
Okay. And so what are your thoughts, or better yet, like, what do you think I don't know, maybe reasoning, I don't know what word I'm trying to use here, but what are your thoughts on the individuals that currently don't own a home, want to live downtown, you know, work on this lifestyle? Because the bottom line is, like, in addition to the fact that that house might not rent roll, they're also paying a couple grand a month to live downtown. And so that's like the real hang up that I run into with individuals like this. They're coming in as investors, but, you know, they're looking at it like, I need this to at least supplement some of my housing expense. And when they find out that's damn near impossible, you know, where do you think the mentality is coming from? Like, how do you combat that?
Oh, they're late to the party.
Gotcha.
That as of right now, there's one building downtown that allows short-term rentals.
Okay.
For this type of scenario where you want to come down, but if you're not home, you can short-term rental your house and make some money that way.
Got
or
it.
your not your house, your condo. It's called Nativo, Nat double IVO.
Okay.
Um, I just looked at listings in there yesterday. There was like 26 units available.
Why is that?
None of investors are not snagging those because where the interest rates are on the ones that are available for sale, both on the subject to side and on the resale side, doesn't make enough sense to where they're going to have a 13% cash on cash return or greater. It's just not enough money for them having their investment right now.
Well, yeah, because those have to be non-warrantable loans too, so they're even higher than regular market.
If you're going traditional, not the sub 2, yes.
Gotcha. What are you seeing as far as the sub 2 stuff is concerned?
They're negative cash flow.
Hmm.
So, like, example, I'm really close friends with a guy named Corey Mortensen. He's a Spyglass agent, recently moved to Charleston, South Carolina, working on a few deals down here, and I'm kind of helping him with some stuff that's down here.
Okay.
Underwrote one of his listings he has in Nativo. I'm like, man, there's no chance here. Like, even if I do sub 2 or you sell it, you're overpriced in the current scenario. For any investor to even consider it, you need to have someone that wants to park their money here, and when they're not here, they rent it out for a little bit just to get some cash and not focus on a full cash on cash return. It's just to cover some of their expenses. That's the person who has to live here.
Gotcha.
And it's not like a quote unquote investment. It is, but it isn't. You're not making money. You're not making more money than your actual mortgage payment. You're just covering some of your cost.
So it's like a late to the party type of thing. Because
Completely.
I'm running into these clients that don't own a home, and then I'm like, why aren't you just
Are they my age or younger?
No.
Okay.
I'm like, why don't you just buy a home?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, there's some sort of allure to this like investment thing. I actually am dealing with another client that is hell bent on purchasing a duplex.
I know you're okay. I know it's okay. There's a bunch of hesitation on the investment property side because of bad issues. You had this before too, with bad scenarios you've had with property management and being a landlord.
Right.
So the less maintenance you have, it mentally, it seems like it's going to be an easier way to have property management or you be the landlord. If you have a house, there's more work to do. You have an AC unit. You don't have.
Right.
You're not just paying HOA fee to take care of all this shit. It's on you as the landlord of the property management company. So when you think condo,
Well, I'm thinking more along the lines of why are they not buying a home that they live in?
why are they not buying a home that they live in?
I mean, I know part of it's
because
lifestyle, but
their thought is still I'm going to lease because it's cheaper to lease because rents. That's what I'm thinking. It's cheaper to lease because rents haven't caught up in Austin, and it just makes way more sense for me to rent right now than buy something and where I don't have a certainty of what the appreciation is going to be on that house, and with our rates are at, it's going to cost me 2 to 3 times to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've ran into that conversation multiple different times. It's a different type of personality. That's why I was asking you.
I'm just
with the
seeing
younger.
that personality more now than ever because now I'm flipping
It's my
over
brother.
to another client that currently is like hell bent on a duplex, and then every time we run the numbers on the duplex, it's not like it's not profitable, right? Like
Yep.
there's no mailbox money, and we can barely even afford to get them approved. And then I'm like, you need to live somewhere. And then we run the numbers on a single family residency. It's well within the budget.
Mm-hmm.
It makes complete sense, but there is just this extreme lust for like owning something that you don't live in.
Yeah.
And I don't get it because it's
It's
almost like
it's like a G move.
that's what I'm saying. It almost like doesn't you can show that it doesn't financially make sense, but that doesn't matter. It's like
That's just ignorance.
it's like I need to like be able to, I don't know, is it like a flex? Like I need
Kind
to
of.
tell people like, yeah, I got a couple rentals.
Yeah, I guess.
Like, okay.
Cool. It costs you way too much money.
Right. Like,
So my brother he's not full there. Okay, to give background, my brother underwrites commercial opportunities in New York. Moving to LA, he's gonna be doing it in LA now. He is so anti purchase a property to live in, all focused on renting because of how the money works out.
Mhm.
Because he's watching occupancy rates and vacancy rates like crazy.
but doesn't he have a living expense?
Yeah, and because this is the crazy part. That guy's willing to pay $5,500 a month to live in a shithole.
And again, I mean, if everything we just said,
Okay, sorry, Jack, it's not a shithole. But
sure, it's very nice, Jack.
yeah,
If everything we just said was all wrapped up with a bow of, and he lives at home with his parents.
no,
Well, I'm just saying
Yeah.
then I'm like, I get it. I get it. You have no overhead housing
Yeah.
expense. But then when it's like, oh, I'm doing this, we're making that, it's like you have to be making, in my opinion, at least in Jack's case, $5,500 worth of mailbox money,
Mm-hmm.
not even counting future appreciation, straight mailbox money. And then you're at a wash. And if you're not doing that, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I don't either. So it's the whole his mindset, and we go back and forth on this. And I see some of his sides, and then I don't see some of his sides.
Mm-hmm.
Him and his girlfriend moving from Brooklyn.
Okay.
They live in currently it's like 700 square feet. They're paying $4,000 to $5,000 a month. The apartment the townhome they looked at in Brentwood in LA.
Okay.
5,500, 1,700 square feet.
Gotcha. So they're upgrading in their
Yeah.
minds.
Okay, so they're moving into a little bit more square footage.
Mm-hmm.
They're 10 minutes from work. Don't have to worry about traffic or anything like that. But we're not in the mindset of living in Austin, Texas. We have so much more land.
Right.
So, like example, I live 47 miles from where we're sitting right now.
Mm-hmm.
I got here in 35 minutes.
Right.
Because I know what time to leave.
Right.
They don't have that in LA. So maybe this isn't a conversation that applies to Austin, Texas, but that is, and okay, actually, no, it does. What if it's someone that, are these people that you're having this conversation with, do they currently live in Austin?
They do.
Do they live in Texas?
They do.
Then I'm lost for words.
And they're downtown, or they want to live in like Terrytown or whatever, and then they're trying to figure out a way. I mean, I know the main reason is like to maintain a lifestyle, like
which has been our main topic of
right. You want to live on Rainy Street, and then you want to like get in the elevator.
Just don't be a married man with 2 kids.
Yeah, you want to live on Rainy Street, and you want to go down to the bar like at the bottom of your hotel or wherever you live, and you want to like beat your chest that you have a rental property.
Mm-hmm.
When I say it out loud, it sounds so fucking corny.
Did you get my married man, 2 kids thing?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I did.
It's just so everyone else knows.
Yeah.
Little serial killer out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't watch out. They still haven't caught that guy, huh?
No. Dumps the bodies in Lady Bird Lake.
We haven't had one though in a couple months, right?
Ooh, like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh, is there another one? Fuck. He's killing guys though, right?
Yeah, married men with 2 kids.
Married men with 2 kids. Interesting. So you think it's like he's like a vigilante?
Dude, I'm watching Dexter right now, so it's fucking freaking me out. Like,
he's like, hey man, you're a married man with 2 kids. Why are you on Rainy Street?
Yeah.
What are your intentions? I think you need to take a little lake nap.
With your body all chopped up.
How's he killing him?
We don't need to go in that.
Like drowning him?
I have no idea.
Okay. Man. Well, luckily I'm not married and I don't have kids.
And I feel so much better about my psyche after I watched Dexter. I'm like uncomfortable even watching some of it. I'm like, yep, I don't have any serial killer vibes in my body. Thank God.
Yeah. What else you want to cover, man? Market updates. We talked about. I mean, are there any events, anything that we need to?
Let's talk about recruiting.
Let's do it.
Okay, so if you're an agent watching this will be some good clips to grab out later. The team itself, Lone Wolf Realty Group, we are upgrading. I should say upgrading. We are adding additional lead sources to our repertoire, if you want to call it that. We're going to be having a few new softwares involved. The amount of lead flow we're going to have is going to be probably a little bit more than we can handle for now, which allows us room to grow. So if you are currently at a brokerage that hire splits, don't provide leads, I'm going to give you some examples. A Keller Williams, a Coldwell Banker, a Compass, a Realty Austin, or what's now Compass. If you're at a bigger brokerage that doesn't directly provide you leads on a day-to-day basis, and it's more they just come direct to a website where it's not a PPC, it's not a Facebook ad, it's not an Instagram ad, it's not YouTube, it's not all these different leads that we have coming in. We're bringing in, so Spyglass itself, they bring in about 700 leads per month. You will have access to those as well. On the team, we're going to be bringing, just for our individuals, 300 to 400 leads per month. All these leads can be worked, and we're going to be adding additional lead sources on top of that. If you want to focus on buyers, we have that. If you want to focus on sellers, we have that. Like even yesterday, I'm working on expired listings. I got a listing appointment booked yesterday, and then got a listing signed yesterday just from an expired, working those. So I would say if there's a scenario where you're looking to have a little more activity in what we feel like a slower market right now, Let's set up a time, grab coffee, meet at the office, have a conversation. Matt's usually involved in these conversations as well, and we kind of talk through what the lending on the team side looks like, how he comes through on the sales side and walks through transactions with us, what our training looks like, how I get you prepared for everything, and let's get it going.
Yeah. No, I love it. I mean, at the end of the day, that's one of the things I try to offer as a lender. It's like we both are going after the same client, right? We're not competition. So all of the leads, I mean, obviously, I'm investing in them with Lone Wolf Realty, and I want to get them over to agents. So you kind of have a built-in ISA, and well, I have intentions of also, kind of grooming somebody and bringing them up as an ISA. So we're trying to get the lead scrubbed and everything along those lines as well.
And on that side, we could have purchased an ISA inside the technology we're using. I said, nope, got an ISA coming.
Yeah, we need a human being
Yep.
in the room. So yeah, that's another maybe public service announcement. If you know anybody who's looking to get into sales, this is going to be like a heavy sales position. It will be part-time in the beginning, but looking for, younger, hungry individuals that are trying to get into real estate on the lower level. Basically I call it like a earn while you learn. We do not want to like bring you in and just make you a commission-based employee. You're not getting any money because you probably don't know what the hell you're doing. So, we want to pay you while we're teaching you and bring you in and get, cut your teeth and do it right. I mean, that's really the way to do it. We're not going to throw you to the wolves.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Is we're currently 10 agents right now. Our goal by end of year is going to be, let's call it 12 or 13. We have the availability to grow through 2025 to 25 agents.
There it is.
So if you're interested this year, typically when brokerage change or team changes happen is during the downtime. I know this whole year has felt like a downtime.
Right.
But Q4 is typically when a lot of the brokerage changes happen. If you're interested, let's have a conversation. And next year, we're going to be cranking up even more.
Love it.
Cool.
You got anything else you want to cover?
I'm all good here.
All right. There it is, man. Matt Kirschling, Gold Star Mortgage. I'm just going to go ahead and, give a shout out to the Friday barbecue and mingle. Every Friday, doing some barbecue, trying to get agents and, industry professionals here. Grab a plate of food, mingle, tell some stories about work, and, try to make connections. This week, we're doing pork ribs, smoking some ribs. I know it's my favorite too. So come through, reach out to me directly. We're in South Austin, right by Central Market on Westgate.
And if it helps, Baby and Kaylee will be coming.
Nice.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Matt Kemps with Lone Wolf Realty Group at Spyglass Realty. Again, if you're looking to have more leads, become a little bit more busy in your day-to-day life in the real estate side, let's have a conversation, grab coffee, walk you through what we do, and let's go from there.
Awesome. All right, man.
Again.
Nice work.